Prime Minister, welcome back to Western Sydney. It's at Albo, putting the West back into Inner West. It's close enough. When JJ lived in, I was a kid, that was the western suburbs. We've rebranded Western Sydney and it's just moved a little further west, but thank you for the time today. I should just correct the record on one thing. I did get a call from the Prime Minister and I did eventually alert him to the fact that I was in London at the time, getting ready to host our Western Sydney leadership study tour to East London to talk about urban regeneration in our sibling region. And when he asked, I didn't make it happen, but Adam Leto and Brett Towers and Mariska and our team did make it happen really quickly. And you guys arriving in such numbers and such short time frame, a great credit to everybody and respect to the Prime Minister. As my wife said to me, there's no thinking about it. The Prime Minister wants you to host this. You do it. Okay. So I serve you, I obey her, very much so. Yes, so if I'm a little dusty, the staff had me with little, try this trick, frozen spoons under your eyes or something for a radio this morning, trying to get these bags out of my eyes, having come in overnight. Before I ask Joe Barr to say a vote of thanks, a couple of things. Firstly, just echo the other statements, obviously. Firstly to Tilly, what a wonderful acknowledgement and welcome to country, Tilly. Thank you so much. You are a superstar. I don't know how long you intend to reign, and I don't know how she votes, but I'd make a move and get her pretty sort of lined up to join the team at some stage, because Tilly will run this country at some stage. And to those currently running the country with you, Michelle Rowland, what a superstar. The member for Greenaway, Blacktown to you guys who are less immune to the names, and the woman who more than anybody is standing up and saying, firstly, encouraged the hell out of ABC to relocate stuff to Parramatta and is working hard to get SBS where it should be in Western Sydney, not in Artarmon, as the multicultural broadcaster. So Michelle, thank you so much for your advocacy for that. And to Sally and Andrew, you saw how marvellous Sally Situ is. If there's a prouder person out of this region to go to the heights of representing this region, to Andrew Charlton, Dr. C, Dr. A, Dr. C, the member for Parramatta, who the ultimate accolade, the former member for Parramatta, the Honourable JJ Brown, reckons you're doing okay. And he's a hard marker, trust me. He's giving you the big raps. And for the two of you, and Michelle, proud representatives, and to the state representatives and the mayors, particularly who are with us, and the leading secretaries and departmental bosses, thanks so much. We know this is a partnership. Western Sydney doesn't happen with government alone. It needs a lot of government, but it's a lot of partnership with everybody else. So thank you very much. And to Kerry, where else would you hold this but at Australia's big house? This is where big stuff happens in Australia. It's where the Eels will eventually win a premiership at some stage here in this. Won't they? Eventually they'll win. But it is where we do big things. It's where the Prime Minister talks to us regularly. PM, ask a couple of quick things based on your speech. This is the 50th anniversary of your great mentor, Tom Uren's intervention, the federal government that intervened in cities, particularly in Campbelltown, the Macarthur Development Corporation, the first real time any federal government had taken a stake since its federation of a role for the federal government in cities. You're particularly doing it in housing, you take a real role. Despite the valiant efforts by all around the country, no one thinks anybody isn't working to try and make housing happen. There must be a frustration at the point of how much money you throw, what gets done, the crushing inertia of any system. Does your frustration build to a point at some stage where you see even more federal intervention, not just writing cheques? Is there any other role the federal government can do to address the most important productivity issue in Australia and equity issue, shelter and affordable housing?
Well, one of the things that we've done is to use the old national competition policy model. So we've got the 1.2 million homes target by the end of the decade. And we've got $3 billion on the table, which will be paid as a reward for people, states and territories hitting their target. I know that premiers are trying to do that, but when you look at, just to give one example, when you drive down Parramatta Road, you think, is that the best we can do? You know, that's in my seat. I campaign for more development that's appropriate. We do need higher densities where it's appropriate as well in order to lift up communities. So I think we can do more. States and territories are engaged. I think the Minns government is very determined to make a difference. There's a couple of mayors here. It'd be good if mayors got on with planning approvals as well, I've got to say. And good if bureaucrats could back it in rather than look for reasons not to do things. It's part of the frustration that we feel. That's the truth. But you know, we need approvals. We need some of the aerotropolis as well. It's not just housing. Some of the businesses that want to locate here find difficulty cutting through, and that in part is what the Future Made in Australia agenda is about, providing as well that financial oomph, if you like, to if the mind doesn't get you, maybe the wallet will get you to make that movement. But certainly, I'm very passionate about the nature of our cities. It's where most of us live. Part of the economic agenda, though, as well, is how do we get our regions to grow? I think I was in Queensland earlier today. The regions will be the big beneficiary of the Future Made in Australia agenda, as well as our outer suburbs as well. And that's why that combination, Western Sydney, that area around the Western Sydney Airport was never about runways. It was about economic development and jobs and changing the whole dynamic of the way the city functions.
On infrastructure, I think also the great advantage, the Albo legacy with the airport and Moorebank Intermodal, and I had the great pleasure of serving as the PM put the committee together to choose the site for Badgerys Creek, and then served on the board as his rep on the then called the Moorebank Intermodal Corporation, now the National Intermodal Corporation. And I think what we're going to as a second phase of infrastructure, while we're not going to not ask for more money for big projects, we certainly will, but I think there's an opportunity now to think about infrastructure of what it should be, a facilitator of other investments. So how does an airport and an intermodal better link Western Sydney, Illawarra and the Hunter? So how do you get that arc? How does a Brisbane Olympic Games spark a South East Queensland economic move? How does building subs in South Australia save South Australia? That sense of needing infrastructure, not just to be about the next big announcement or the next bit of kit, but how do we actually use that infrastructure? And so I suppose the question to that is, you as the ultimate urbanist, the best infrastructure minister we've ever had, the first and best, and the ultimate urbanist Prime Minister, and I, wasn't a log field. Gough, Hawkey, I pay tribute to Malcolm with a lot of Lucy support. Malcolm is the first time the coalition had started to look at not treating cities as, you know, a country as a rural development agency, but seeing Canberra have a role, and then ultimately, obviously, with you back as Prime Minister. Where do you see the mood in national political debate about infrastructure? Some say, well, you know, it's tuned down a little bit, and the votes aren't there. What is the mood in your cabinet about not only investing in new infrastructure in places like Western Sydney, but how to leverage it into a partnership with the private sector to make the real benefit, the legacy come, is the jobs and other benefits it drives, not just opening the ribbon on the new bit of kit?
No, look, it's an absolute priority, and one of the things that we had to do when we came to office, because when Malcolm left the Prime Ministership, essentially you had, let's call it for what it is, the Nats unplugged, get out the colour-coded spreadsheets to decide where funding should be, and often those things just didn't add up. We had a $120 billion pipeline, but you can't build a $1.5 billion Rockhampton Ring Road with hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, you can't actually sign a contract and get it started. And we had to deal with all of that. So we had some difficult decisions to make. We've now got even more money in the infrastructure budget, and we want it to look at areas that drive that productivity, that make a difference. I mean, an example is working with New South Wales. I passionately believe that the rail link to the new airport needs to go to the south and needs to connect to Macarthur. That's where the growing populations are in Sydney. We finally finished the last mile of rail to the port at Botany. It was ridiculous. I mean, people know it. Here's a nerdy fun fact for you. For all of that time, one of Australia's largest ports had, one track into the port. So you can't have a train going in and a train going out. You got to wait for the train to go the journey on that last period. Like, there's this low-hanging fruit in terms of productivity, which is there. And what's tragic about it is we did the planning, we had the funding to fix it. We did the Southern Sydney Freight Line, and they ripped it out in the first Abbott budget in 2014. Just madness, making just a handbrake. There's no votes in a rail line to a port. It's not sexy, but there are votes in getting the economy right and getting productivity growing and getting those things. So I think one of the things that I hope defines my government is, after 2 years, there's a range of things we're doing that certainly don't necessarily win a vote in any electorate. We're doing them because they're the right thing in the national interest. The work that Michelle's had to do in repairing the national broadband network and getting it up to speed, Who knew fibre was better than copper? Like anyone? It's just absurd that we had that debate, but we did.
I can tell you there will be votes in the metro extension down to Macarthur, as there will be up towards Blacktown. There will be votes in a Castlereagh connection, the dotted line on the map. It's been in the, if you're old enough as me to remember the term the Gregories, the old Castlereagh Freeway. It's been dotted there for forever. We still don't have it. And a mix of federal and state governments and other regions. There will be votes in having an SBS based in Western Sydney, which should always have been, and we'll continue to work with you on that. Now, the tough questions are out of the way. The most important thing, firstly, here's a big secret. My 24-year-old's here at his birthday yesterday. Thought I was flying home for his birthday. You frankly thought I was. You thought I was flying home for this gig. Really, I'm flying home for the Earls Rabbits match tomorrow night, right? So, the serious debate in Western Sydney. Keep all your public policy. How do you get to be on the bottom of the ladder with a talent like yours? I owe him that one. I'm still on London time, and. Are we maybe going to give you your first win of the season, or can I have a little bit of confidence? Second win of the season.
Second.
Sorry.
Well, tomorrow night this will be a sad place where we are competing not to have an opportunity to win the premiership this year, but perhaps competing for the loser to be favourite for the spoon. So it's been a hard time, but we went 43 years. Between premierships. It's been how long for you, mate?
Almost 40. Almost 40.
Just so I'd get that in.
Thank you.
But we at least have the decency to not have raised expectations for most of that time.
Thank you, brother.